Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to The Grind, and welcome back to another conversation about retirement. And I have some devastating news about retirement, some realities that a lot of you probably haven't even considered. Now, I love retirement. I would not change a thing, maybe even change it, maybe even pushed a little harder and retired a bit sooner, but it worked out great. This is amazing. But there are some major drawbacks, and I want to share some big time statistics with you all and a personal story. I mean, my parents went through some real hard times with retirement. While they did manage to save off their house, build enough home equity and a little bit of savings, they quickly consumed all of it when my dad became ill. But we'll dive right into that here shortly. Unfortunately, a couple of sobering statistics. As far as I know, my research shows that the average American Social Security, once you qualify, is only $1,100, $1,200, maybe $1,300. I think it's like $1,182 or something. So $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 per month. Social Security for the average US. Average Canadian CPP is somewhere similar, $1,000 to $1,200 a month. Later on in life, there's also old age security, a number of years later. In Canada, you get the healthcare. Canadian, the Alberta healthcare are different variations of that. And that does help a little bit, but it does mean you're still paying higher taxes to sort of build that foundation. And you're also waiting 12, 14 hours to see a doctor. In so many cases, people are missing on elective surgeries or even passing away in waiting to get on lists, even for non-elective surgery. So the healthcare system's not great. It's there. Yes, you can see a doctor, sure. But it certainly leaves a lot to be desired. And the US side, I know it's even harder. The healthcare is amazing if you have third-party insurance. We visited doctors in the US in the past where I remember we did a trip years ago and a few of us got strep throat and one became really sick. But we went to a local clinic. The doctor was amazing, very on the ball, got us in, got us out, and everything was done quickly. So it works well down there if you have insurance, but that's a problem. A lot of people don't, and it's very costly. So living in retirement, if you have to incur those costs, is cost prohibitive. It's huge money. And so I want to talk about some of those costs. I mean, again, I already mentioned, average Canadian, $1,200, $1,300 a month, average American, maybe $1,200 a month is all you're getting in retirement. Plus if you happen to have a little bit of pension money elsewhere through a company or some other savings that you manage to put away, maybe you put let's just say a couple $100,000 away, you might be able to draw an extra $1,000 or $2,000 a month and sort of draw that out. Ideally, you put that into some sort of an investment. But there's another sobering statistic. And while some people think, people are living longer these days, there is some case to show that you extrapolate and you're seeing the upward trend shows that people are typically living longer. We're about 12, 14 years longer than we were about 50 years, 80 years ago. But that's just drawing people longer. I mean, my parents are true examples of that. Both became chronically ill, one with cancer, the other one with dementia. And so their lives weren't any better. They were just longer. And that's honestly what is happening. But another sobering statistic that I found out, that 66.1 years of age is where people start becoming really sick. But another statistic, here's one more. So, I mean, we all know that I come from, sort of more of a mathematical background. I always see numbers, think of numbers, and kind of run that stuff through my mind. But another really unfortunate statistic is, and rightfully so, a lot of people don't know and they're unsure if they'll ever have enough money to retire. And that's why a lot of people defer retirement or don't even retire at all. That's because they say, a stat I came across that said something about 73% of retirees or old age people, once they pass away, 73% of people that die have at least $62,000 in debt. So $60,000, $70,000 in debt. That's 3/4 of the population, once they pass away, are in debt at least $60,000. That's a sobering thought. So when you think about going into retirement, how few people actually have that are above, that are in the black. So many people are struggling to make ends meet, and it's not getting any easier with the way things are right now. We talk about some of these changes in healthcare, some of these changes in the pension plans and the benefits, and Social Security may be getting scaled back, and other things like the capital gains is going to take a big chunk out of a lot of this too. But the sobering thing is, what my parents were going through. Now, both my parents became ill in different ways. Unfortunately, my dad wound up with dementia, and over a 10-12 year time frame, he started to really deteriorate and start to slide, and it just really wasn't good. His health wasn't great in that regard. Mental health, physiological mental health. I don't know what the term is. I'm not a doctor, but his physical health was good. His body was good, but his dementia took the best of him, unfortunately. And so my mom, dealing with multiple bouts of cancer through the years, she struggled and was getting weaker. Now, we had to check my dad into an old folks home, but I didn't realize until later on that my mother didn't share a lot of the financial situation with me. We just knew that they were dealing with a lot of these health issues, and visited my dad lots in the old folks home, and it was tough during COVID there because they actually kept us locked out and we couldn't even go there for a while. And it was such a hard time on the family, such a rough time. And then my mom, of course, on and off with different issues and cancer and problems and treatments. And my brother was still living at home, helping out there with some of that. And I'd visit when I could. And we had lots of visits and lots of talks. But at the end of the day, I never realized the financial burden that she was subject to once they became ill like that. And this is the devastating news that a lot of people don't think about when they retire. First of all, you don't have that much retirement money. Again, $1,000, $1,200, maybe combined household of $2,000, $3,000. And then all of a sudden you have bills to pay. So as my old man went into this old folks home, and I didn't realize this, but apparently these homes, I didn't know that. I mean, you guys could probably attest, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for a lot of these homes. Now you get these little villages here, and you get these over 55 villages, as you see these sort of condominiums. And this is an example of what some people move to when they can afford to and they're physically able. And people that are able to do that, absolutely, if you can help yourself, if you can move around. But as you start losing mobility or you have more health needs and concerns, as my parents became that way, you start needing that extra medical attention, feeding, cleaning, and all of that. And that's really what my dad was needing, a lot of that extra attention. And my mom couldn't really help anymore. It got to a point where she just couldn't physically do it. My brother was there on and off. I was out of town lots working, so it was hard for me to get over there. I lived on the other end of the city. And so we all kind of pitched in, a little helped, a little here, helped a little there. But the bottom line was, it was ultimately my mom's decision to put my dad in the home. And so I didn't realize this, but if you really do the math on that, at $4,000 a month, 12 months, that's $48,000 a year. Well, he was in there about 5 years. So you think about 50 grand a year, at 4 years, it's $200,000 a year after tax earnings. Okay, sure, in retirement, you're not making that much, but 200, maybe call it $250,000 before tax earnings. That's devastating. That literally can wipe out, your pension. That can wipe out your savings. That can wipe out the equity in your home, which is kind of what happened, because in some cases, and in our case, you can get what they call a chip mortgage. So it's like a reverse mortgage where you start drawing equity and the bank eventually owns your home. So you just continue drawing that equity out, and at some point it levels out and the bank takes possession and sells the home and it's theirs. And so that's kind of the direction it was headed, because to come up with that kind of money and savings, like I said, their house was paid off, they had savings, But that was all eaten up quickly once my old man started getting ill, and my mom with her extra medication, because a lot of that medicines weren't covered. They didn't have, like with Blue Cross, only covers part of it. So this constant burden of costs and expenses, medical expenses, costs and burden of, housing for my dad, because my mom couldn't look after him anymore. It just became too much and started to consume everything that they had, savings, home equity, and the works. And so sadly, this is what happens to all too many people. If there isn't enough savings put away, often you have to start digging into some of the basics. And, unfortunately in this situation, the house is one of those things, the home. And now, here I was stressing out, and my brother and my mom and my dad, we were all stressing. It was a very stressful period with the health issues, the things that I saw on the surface. That was devastating to me. I saw, my mom dealing with cancer treatments, the feet issues, the hair loss, the problems with all of that. It was just absolutely, no one should have to deal with that. And I still think that's all a poison, but we all have our theories on all of that. And my dad, every time you go see him, it seems like he seemed less and less like he recognized you, and that's a hard feeling. That's hard on the family, where, they don't seem to even notice. You show up and you sit there, talk to them for a couple hours, and there's no response, and you don't know if they're even hearing or thinking, or it's such a devastating thing. It really is. And so all of that was on the surface. That's what I was seeing. I was seeing the physical, the physical and the health issues that they were dealing with, and they were retired. And sadly, and I had mentioned this, my dad retired for the second time, and shortly thereafter, that's when all of a sudden, his health started to decline. Now, whether it was directly related, I think it's just a natural aging process anyway. But it was just one of those things that was starting to happen. And so the way I see this, a late retirement just didn't really allow him to really spread his wings and enjoy life in his last third. And my mom, well, she was in the same situation. From the time that she was retired, she was already dealing with health issues. And so she transitioned right into just full-time management of health problems. And it just never really became a fun last third for either of my parents. And so this is where there's two things that I can't reiterate enough. With the fact that so many people pass away at their end days in Hawk, and it doesn't matter, you can't take your debt or your money with you anyway, that's not really it, but it's the stress while you're alive that you carry such a burden. And so that's why I continue to reiterate two things is so important to me that I'm learning, that I've learned in all of this, because I am dealing with the affairs, and now I'm dealing with lawyers, bankers, creditors, you name it. I'm dealing with that as kind of the executor. And now, I'm managing all those fragmented, broken parts and bank accounts and negative balances and dealing with that. And I get it. It all makes sense to me now. And I totally sympathize, empathize, and I really do feel for people and my parents who are going through this, and anybody else who is going through this, that it sneaks up, and it's not easy. It's such a hard time. It's so hard on the family to see this kind of unravel like this. But this continues to reiterate two things for me. Number one, bust your hump when you can. Work your backside off to generate enough savings, Roth IRA, 401ks, RSPs, mutuals, TFSAs. In other countries, they have lots of others. Savings. It doesn't matter. Those are fun click words. Savings, savings, savings. Ideally, something that's generating a little extra revenue too, a little bit of extra cash flow that's making money too. Ideally, make money as hard as you possibly can when you can. Because it's not about being greedy. It's really about that focus about putting yourself in a position where when you're dealing with, slowing down, winding down, and the health challenges and all of those things start creeping in, the last thing you want to be doing is worrying about where the heck the next $1,000 is coming from to pay off that, to pay that next series of bills. You don't want to deal with that. So there's two things I've learned. One, bust your hump, make the money when you can. Don't waste your earning years doing nothing. Don't waste it because they're very limited. Don't wait around and think that the government's going to help you out or some other process or system's going to help you out. Even though we're a very socialist society right now, it's not something you want to rely on. It really is not something you want to wait and rely on. You can't. The idea is make hay when the sun shines. And number two, when it's time, it's time. And that's what I realized is, retire as soon as you can so that you can enjoy that last third, because I truly saw my parents, they basically retired and became ill. It was that simple. Sure, they lasted a bunch of years, but in and out of cancer treatment facilities, in an old folks home, being tossed around by a bunch of strangers. It's part of life that we can't deny and is a possibility for any one of us. But there's one thing that you have to recognize. Time is short. Time is limited. Bust your hump when you can. Make that money. Get that money in savings. Don't buy this big goofy house. Nobody needs that house. That's just eating up your revenue. Get something more moderate, easier to live with. Live within your means. That's really what it kind of comes down to. Have what you need and need what you have, and that's it. You don't need a whole lot more. And so the reality, what I'm learning is, especially as you get closer to retirement, make sure that you've got some of that money. Understand where the cash flow is coming from. And again, push hard. Push hard when you can. When you have opportunities, make that money to put it away. Not to buy that big house because you always wanted that 10,000 square foot house. Nobody needs that. So that's what I learned. And then pull the pin early because, like I said, enjoy more of that last third than less of it is the way I see that, right? We all know that once you retire, your best years are behind you, period. That's just a sobering fact. Your best years are behind you. You can all look and say, hey, you know what? We're all retirement age. So I look back and I say the 80s were the best time ever. Maybe it was. Some cases it was, and maybe in other cases it wasn't. But for a lot of people, it's just, you've got to manage it in the best way that you can. And so we've got to basically make the best of our time. When you don't have a lot more time left, of course, use it to the best of your ability. Don't waste your time with people that aren't really wasting your time with or spending your time with. Just enjoy your time. Enjoy the time you have. But again, all I can keep saying is work hard when you can make the money so that you save it for a rainy day. And that's what they say. Save it for a rainy day. And I can't tell you how true that is. That's typically the way that I see this. That's such a stark reality for me that you really do have to make the most of every single day, because nothing is promised and only one thing is guaranteed. We all go away one day. So work hard. Like I said, work hard when you can. Formulate that plan. We don't need a house that looks like this, do you? I mean, do you need a house that looks like that? I don't know. I mean, if it's within your means, absolutely. I'm not saying live like a pauper. I'm saying live within your means, put money away so that you have a plan, so that you can rest comfortably and then get out while you're getting's good. Because I do believe, like I said, the longer you wait, working into late 60s, 70s, and then all of a sudden then you become ill or worse. Yeah, no, you've got to enjoy life. Anyway, I hope that kind of shed some light, some sobering statistics, and a little bit more about some of the things that I've experienced and why I've come to this whole reality of, working hard when you can, make that money, push, and in retirement, retiring early, because I see what late retirement means. It means you haven't enjoyed life in your own way. You're always out in the grind. You're always pushing. You've always got some boss nagging and telling you, are you done yet? Are you done yet? Nobody needs that. So anyway, hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.